Hello and welcome back to this episode of Unleash Your Inner Athlete. And as I said, we've got a fantastic guest today. So welcome, Kim. Thank you for joining me today. Now, I know you've got a lot of information to share, particularly about, challenges you go through and then how you bring that and build your success as an entrepreneur, but also what your teachings are, because you've got a vast level of experience through the world of sport, military, You've worked with NLP, hypnotherapy, fitness. You've been a professional athlete, and you've worked from everyone from the world of sport to the world of business. So I really want to help our listeners get a really good sense of who Kim is, how you've used your life experience to build your business, build your success, because you're very well respected in the health, fitness and sports industry, and share, your perspectives on the health and fitness industry as well, particularly for people who are midlife and are moving forward, how they avoid burnout, how they keep their performance, but also how they, as they get older, how they create that quality of life, but still stay active, fit and healthy and performing at their very best. But before we get into all of that and your sort of process and how you help your clients, you can share with some of the listeners that they can take away and maybe implement some strategies or ideas for themselves, is get a sense of who Kim is, because you've had quite an extraordinary story. Like I said, you were an athlete, you've worked in the military, you're now this icon of, as I see it, of health and fitness. So how did this all start? How did this love of sport, health and fitness, how did you sort of start on this journey?
Oh, thank you, Julia, for that very kind introduction. Very kind. How did it start? It started when I was a teenager. I had a very challenging, I would say, time at school. I went to 7 different schools, and I just really didn't find my place kind of in the world. And I think probably around 14, I was like, I want to be able to help people. And so I had that idea when I was doing my PE project. And I remember my teacher, Nori Benna, going, I don't think that's possible, but on you go. And so I did the project, and it was all about energized performance, which is my business. And energized is about helping people on the inside, connect with themselves and feel good enough to do whatever they want to do. Or even if they don't feel good enough, how to manage things. And then the performance angle is, whether it's sport, business or life, how to get the most out of it. So more external. So it really was like from a struggle within myself as a teenager into, growing my business. And I kind of feel really privileged still to be running my own business all these years on and still feeling as passionate about it and purposeful, still wanting to learn and still having such a range of amazing people to work with. So that's sort of the very beginning to now, as it were, in a tiny snapshot with lots of chaos in between.
Yeah, because I noticed in your sort of bio, you also talk about your struggles with sort of school and the bullying and how that shaped you, and then obviously your health struggles as well. And but you still managed to keep performing throughout all of this, with your health struggles as you grew. You still managed to show up every day. What was that like? How did you manage that?
I think it's really interesting when you observe people online, like nowadays, and you kind of get snapshots, and we remember people in our heads and think, oh, they show up all the time. I think being really authentic, I'm sure myself and everybody, you have days where you don't want to show up, and I probably haven't. I think through all the tools that I've professionally learned and all the life experiences I've had, I've always had this core value of believing that something's possible, even if, I don't think anything is always possible, but something is. And it's like trying to make sense of whatever has happened to you. And everybody listening, and yourself included, we've all got stories that will inspire somebody, even if you don't think you do. And I think I've just had a resilience, whether it comes from my great grandparents and grandparents. I didn't know them, some of them at all, never met them. But there seems to be a line of sort of resilience in our family, and a willingness just to get back up. But sometimes those chapters, after something stressful, I always say to my clients is like, give yourself the grace to, be in that messy period, to make sense of it, whether it's like an injury, a trauma, a loss, or just inverted commas, like a change of home or a change of a relationship status or whatever it is. Like those things can destabilize like our identity and our self-worth and our values. And I think navigating that is sometimes really challenging. And the kindest thing is showing up for yourself, but it's challenging. So yeah, I try and practice what I teach. And I've learned the more I coach, like you're never going to be perfect, like perfect is an illusion. But how you understand yourself and how you navigate yourself, like how you help yourself, is probably the most useful thing you can learn, is, understanding yourself to help yourself.
Do you think part of being an athlete as well, because obviously you go through a lot of, having to challenge yourself, not just mentally, but physically. You also have to cope, as everyone knows, you cope with an extraordinary amount of failure, and you've got to get back up, whether that's, a loss of a competition or whether it's, an injury that's held you back. Obviously, some athletes, they get dreadful injuries and can no longer play their sport. Do you think your background in sports also helped you in terms of your resilience and your ability? Do you use a lot of that mindset as well? Does that come into your entrepreneurship and everything else you do in your life, your charity work, all this kind of thing?
I'm sure it does. I'm sure it's all interwoven as well, though. So the sport, I think sport teaches you how to, show up and have discipline, because you're not going to get the end result if you're not disciplined and forming habits. But that's kind of the same with anything in life. If you don't have a level of discipline and structure, and I'm neurodivergent in many ways, and I think sport was an outlet for that. And then when I had various of the injuries and illnesses, navigating my brain and myself was much harder without having that like physical outlet for movement and expression and freedom. There's quotes that like, there's no failure, only feedback. And that used to really annoy me. But now I'm like, it's true. Like we learn the most from when we fail, if you want to use the word fail. And, an amazing day is an amazing day, but we never really learn as much as when it's incredibly tough. And so I think through the experiences I've had, I've tried to reframe it as, what can I learn from this? And that's not bypassing, the hard emotions. It's kind of feeling them, but then going, okay, what can I learn from this? Or how could I do something differently if it's sport related or life? It varies. But I've had the privilege of working with military people. So I haven't been in the military, to clarify that, but with military people. Yeah, I've worked with them, and with like elite sports people, but also people coming into community sport from, traumatic or abusive backgrounds, and, being filtered in to help them. And everyone has a level of resilience that they don't realize. And, I have the privilege of observing that. And so I think sport has given me something, but also the other dynamics, in my life as well. So it's a fusion of everything, I would say.
Yeah. I mean, in terms of, like I say, you've gone in sport, military, and then those suffering with all sorts of mental health issues, physical issues, because you also look at, you also help people with, sort of overcoming injuries and that kind of stuff as well, as getting them healthy and fitter. So obviously that's a broad spectrum of different people with different types of problems. How do you ever find that challenging, dealing with the different types of issues, or is that something that for you is the challenge? Is that fantastic? Each person's different in that sense. There's something new for you to explore and help them overcome.
I'm smiling because, from business coaching, everybody's like, niche yourself. And I'd say my niche is helping people believe in themselves and come back from injury or burnout, or, achieve whatever that big dream is that they think they can't do. And it doesn't matter who you are. So although it's a cross section of different people, in essence, it's the same thing. When it's different, but it's the same when they come. And my client base is varied. I have a section of older teenagers to early 20s, and then a lot of midlifers, and then the older population. But there's a common thread of a desire to reduce self-sabotage and achieve whatever it is, in their life. And that's kind of the exciting thing for me, that it's, keep learning. And my training has been comprehensive in many areas and sort of evolved from that. But yeah, we're all the same but different.
Yeah. It's interesting you talk about self-sabotage. There's something I've come to learn over the last 10 years or so, about the mindset. You hear a lot about mindset and everything, but talking about the subconscious and how we, without realizing, could be sabotaging ourselves. So I'm guessing that doesn't change really, no matter what age you are, but you can live with it for such a long time. I mean, I certainly did for myself as well. You find you're not able to sort of push through boundaries, barriers, and you always feel blocked and challenged. So something like that can be extraordinarily, I guess in some ways, destructive for oneself as you get, particularly as you're getting older and you're tired, the clock's ticking and you're thinking, well, what do I want to do with my life? I've only got so many years left.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I think when I was a younger coach, I almost had this assumption that as you got older, that would just go away. And then as I've become older and I work with an older population, you realize unless you do the work, it doesn't go away. It's always there. And I volunteer for a lovely charity called the Marmalade Trust, who work with people with loneliness. And it's just been really insightful of like people in their 80s and 90s, still have anxiety and self-sabotage. But it's like, as I said earlier, like coming back and understanding yourself, and rather than seeing it as a limit, seeing it as a normal part of, say, your personality or character, and what actually helps you to A, not go into that heightened state, or B, notice when you're in it and then help yourself. And that's like a conscious habit that you then have to learn. And it's an unconscious habit that we default into, say, anxiety, because it's just normal and it's a protection. So this is something I would like work with someone, whether they're an elite sports person, CEO of a business, entrepreneur, teenager. And so the thread is really similar. And I think my thread and value is like, I see your potential. It's so clear to me. And I'm like, if I can help you believe in yourself a little bit more, then that's my key purpose, because then everything else in your life is easier. And you don't need to have like a big crazy goal. Your big crazy goal could be to accept yourself and live more comfortably and happily, or it could be the big crazy goal, because I work with a lot of people who have big crazy goals.
Yeah, because I guess it's, well, like you say, you can live with these things for such a long time but not even realize it. And that's the problem. And it's when do you get to that realization? Because very often we're programmed, aren't we, to sort of just, well, this is it. This is who you are. There's nothing you can do about it. And that's kind of sad to me.
Yeah, my belief is there's always something we can do. But I totally respect if someone doesn't believe that. And, sometimes our narrative and our safety can be really uncomfortable and not a happy place. But we're stuck there. And that's where sort of more counseling and therapeutic talking can be really useful. I fall into probably like the next chapter, which is more change work and kind of doing hard work to change, and keeping somebody accountable with that. I always believe I've had some older clients in their 70s, and they've given me the evidence that it's completely possible to change at any age. And when you look at things on neuroplasticity and how your brain changes and how you learn, like, it is maybe harder, but it's totally possible. And so anyone listening, it's like, just start with a tiny thought change or a habit change, and you'll think, oh, this won't do anything. But then a year later, if you've committed with it, something does change. And it's that intrinsic commitment to yourself of, why don't I give it a go? Because like it's not great here, so why don't I give it a go? Or I've always had that idea, why don't I just start with like step one, and it's miles away from the big goal, but why don't I just start? And, I'm not the first person, won't be the last person to share things like this. It's not rocket science, but it's like, hopefully somebody listening, something just lands and you're like, oh yeah, like, let me commit to that. But it's like, commit to it for weeks, days and weeks. And if you fail, inverted commas, for a few days because you're ill or your family's ill or like life takes over, give yourself some grace and just commit and begin again. It's like, it's not that you can't do it, it's just it doesn't work right then. And also, if you don't see a change in 2 or 3 weeks, you normally have to do something for 3 or 4 months before you're actually really feeling and seeing the difference. So back yourself and give it a go, and get support around you. It doesn't need to be paid support. There's lots of different, networks and things that you can get support from. But I'd also say make sure you choose the support. It's not too wide, because then you can get distracted. So it's like key support and clarity. But yeah, anyone listening, go for it.
Yeah, because so I often think, is it something, what have you found with your sort of, particularly people who are sort of approaching their mid-30s, maybe 40? Because you still got hopefully you still got your energy, your health, hopefully. What is it have you found it is about people once they reach that kind of age, they're going through that life change, that they suddenly have this kind of block to their future or to their health, their fitness, or then you've got the other spectrum of the people who it's almost like they're having a midlife crisis and they're sort of in the gym having to get as lean as they can and go for those, you yourself have done these extraordinary challenges. So what is the difference between those two kind of attitudes? I'm a midlifer myself and way beyond 40, but
yeah, I think it's a really good question, and it's layered, because say mid-30s to mid-50s, everybody's life is quite different. Somebody might have been married 2 or 3 times and have different children and stepchildren, and like I have clients with that setup, and then I have clients who would have liked to have children and are on their own, and then clients who wouldn't and who have a more sort of diverse family unit. And so I think it's, first of all, like meeting yourself where you are and looking at like what you expected from your life and making your peace with where you actually are, and then getting really clear on like your purpose and your why for the next chapters. And like sitting down and giving yourself some time, whether it's writing, walking, talking it out loud, but kind of reframing where we want to go in this like fast-paced society, and there's so many options, I believe needs us to like come within and like have a bit of self-reflection. And so often we don't do that now, and it's so easy to get like quick dopamine hits with social media or scrolling or whatever is the thing that distracts you. So if you're feeling lost, it's like coming back to yourself and going, what was the story that I thought would be unfolding, and making your peace with that, and then going, okay, so what's possible now? Like what would I like? And I think post-COVID, for some people, I work on a really short time frame, like maybe just 2 or 3 weeks to start with, because people kind of are like, oh, I don't know what I want in 3 years. I'm like, that's fine. Like, it's really fine. Like, let's do 2 or 3 weeks. And then for others, 2 or 3 weeks is like not enough, and we might do 2 or 3 years. But it's having that flexibility again of going, where's your life situation right now? Like, are you caring for older parents or people? Are you caring for young children? Like looking at the whole setup and then going, how long do you want to have a little plan for? Do we create a vision board? Do we do some guided hypnotherapy? Do we look at like values, beliefs, priorities, all the things in like a conventional work-life balance wheel? And it's about that reconnection with self and identity. So that's the inner work. And then the outer work is, what do you want? What's the purpose? What's the why? And it's quite a deep piece of work, but it's, when people are ready for it, it's empowering. And if they're not ready or they haven't got the space, there's like little things you can do, as a transition. So say they've got young children or they're caring for someone who's unwell. That's the 2 common things that would come in. Then we just look at little small things that you can go, that would give you a sense of value or identity. And then, when would you like to look at something bigger? So yeah, that's how I would sort of help people within that middle stage. But it's interesting, sometimes it happens at, like early 20s when they're leaving uni, or later when, say, a partner or their friends are passing away, but they're still active. And so it's really interesting. It does happen quite often. And so the more you can learn how to realign yourself and your story, the easier it can be. But it doesn't mean it's still not challenging, but it's like an opportunity.
Yeah. So I was just thinking, why this is so important for us throughout your life, really, to really pay attention to, what's happened in your past and how that is now affecting you moving forward. Because sometimes I think we can go through life, we're so caught, there's so much noise, isn't there, going around. To do with your health, your fitness, your finances, your relationships, whatever it may be. This is all going to be impacting you, and depending on how your story from your childhood moved forward, that sort of story that you've had, and this has come up for me in many interviews as well, your personal story and how that shapes your beliefs and values and how you respond or react to various different situations that come up all your life, and whether you can move through them relatively easily, or it can create some sort of block. And I've certainly been in that case where there's been a block. But now coming back to what we were saying a little bit about mind and body connection, and how important that is, because no matter what age you are, you don't want to be stuck in it. We always want to be able to make that progress. It's like being healthy and fit. You have to make progress. As an athlete, you have to progress and improve and get better. But it's then how people understand how these things can come up, and you're not aware of it. And it's changing your perception of your story. I hope I'm making sense of all of this. I'm saying a lot.
No, perfect sense. Perfect sense. And I think all of us, myself included, like, life goes on and then suddenly something will happen, and whether it's like you catch yourself in the mirror, or you catch your language that you're talking to someone, or somebody does something and you're like, wow, I really wanted to do that. Or so often there's that moment where you're like, oh, where did I go? What happened there? And then it's about going, okay, so how can I help myself? Which I keep returning to that question, but it's so useful. Instead of going like, I'm not good enough or I can't do it, it's like, how could I help myself? Like, who could help me and what would help me, and where's the overwhelm? And I think we're often good at like giving but not receiving, and so it's like being able to just ask and being able to create like 5 or 10 minutes of time. Like, time, we're all time short, but 5 or 10 minutes we can definitely find, even if we feel we can't. It's like 5 or 10 minutes just for like little habit changes. But it's okay. I've learned through really hard stuff, like, you will lose yourself at times, but it's like, how do you return to yourself when you find, you're not sure where you're at? And that can happen in many different forms, but often through loss of some form, in whatever way that is. And that's not going to bypass any of us. And I think that's, when we're talking about the diversity of people I work with, that's the common thread. We're all human. We all have hopes and dreams, however big or small they are, they're valid. And we will all experience, hopefully, love and loss. And how do we, navigate that, I always say that messy, magical path of life, and make the most of each day and not wait, because nothing's ever guaranteed. Tomorrow isn't. And I've had many experiences where that's been shown to me, and it is a cliche, but it's like, if something's there, do something now to begin the change, and you'll thank yourself, and so will everybody around you who will benefit.
Yeah. And I think particularly when it comes to performance of any sort, it's that sense of not procrastinating. Because I think, there is a fear related to procrastination, whether it's a fear of success, fear of making a fool of yourself, whatever it may be. But I think that's something that's really important, actually, as you said, not waiting. But sometimes those fears can just keep you held there because you're so unsure of the future. And I think that happens a little bit more as you get older, because, time is finite. You don't know, and obviously the older you get, you don't know what's going to happen with your health, that you're at higher risk, which is why, being fit, being healthy, pushing your body a little bit more than maybe you expect is going to be really beneficial, because not doing that could be more detrimental to you. And I don't want to scare people by saying that, but you've got to think of all these things if you want to have and still continue to have an exciting, interesting life, whatever that may be for you as an individual.
Yeah, I mean, procrastination, that's been a friend of mine often, like
procrastinator.
Being neurodivergent is, you can get into hyperfocus, and then hyperfocus obviously in the wrong areas, and then rejection sensitivity dysphoria then causes, this overwhelm and this paralysis as well. But all of those things, I'm like, it's okay. Like procrastination, I think, is there as a protection. But it's like, take the first step and see what happens. Ask someone, like, don't expect too much from yourself, but be consistent. Because often we're like, oh, I should do all of this. And it's like, no, just be consistent with a small goal. But don't, it's like, keep moving forwards, but allow yourself to also pause. I can't remember exactly what you said, but I always say, like, there's power in pausing too. And so it depends on who I'm working with, of like, is it an understanding of how to pause and it's okay to like pause? Or is it there's procrastination and fear, and how do you move through that? And they're sort of similar, like you said, a fear of success, a fear of failure, a fear of like change of identity. And it's all coming back to like, who are you and what do you want? Which is a really simple and very layered, complex question. And sometimes pausing in the simple day-to-day is what you need. And sometimes pushing yourself through to shift things is what you need. And kind of knowing which that is comes through the experience of trying as well.
And in terms of when you work with someone, say you've got someone, let's go on to the real, because what I'm really interested in as well is the mind-body connection. I know we're both, keen about mind-body connection and how that now helps, how important that is as well to achieving peak performance. So whether that's peak performance in your business, or whether, like yourself, you want to do a triathlon or a ultra marathon or something like that. So you want to go and do an extreme sport of some sort, particularly as you're getting older. How do you navigate the mind and body connection, particularly from a sports perspective? Because obviously you've had to train very hard over the years, and you still do. How do you get someone, say, who's approaching that midlife and they want to go on this journey? They decided this is something that's going to be great for them. It's going to help their health, fitness, give them a purpose in life, because that's part of it as well.
Yeah.
How important is that mind-body connection when it comes to something like that?
I believe it's really important, and the more that I experience things, and the more I work with people, and the more I read, and the more I learn, the mind and the body is really intrinsically connected, from a neurological level, looking at like of being very top line, the vagus nerve, the book, the body knows, the mind knows, the body knows the score. And, our thoughts determine often our performance and our energy and our outcome to a point. Obviously, there are other factors. There's many different things I do. It depends on the athlete and the person that I'm working with. Often we'll work on like their identity as an individual and their why for doing whatever that goal may be. But like really working on the layers of the why, like why does it really matter? Then we'll look at the motivation and the practicalities of how they're going to make it happen and the things that could challenge them. So, other people being unwell, deadlines with work, the things that could impact them and how they can then overcome those challenges. Then if there's things that they could be challenged by, like, do they get injured, like, or actually during the event, like there's then another layer for event setup and how do you manage that? So it's really working with like a clear mental strategy and then alongside it, a physical strategy. And then I might do some nutrition or work with a dietitian as well and work with their nutrition too, strength and conditioning. So it depends, this may be too layered for some people listening, but it's getting, if someone just wants to do it themselves, it's like, what is your real why, but your layers of why, who inspires you and motivates you to move towards that goal? Because it's easy on a good day, but it's hard to do it on a hard day. So why would you do it? And then the practical aspect of how are you going to do it and how are you going to reorganize your time and your day to be able to make that happen. And I always say with people, it's like a priority of 3. So if you're, say, going for like training for a marathon, that will become a priority for a period of time. And some other areas of your life, say the social side of friends and family, may drop down into what we term as maintenance. So you still see them, but it's not like a priority. And then the marathon happens and friends and family come up to like a priority. And that's obviously meaning they're always a priority, but just like where you spend your time. And that's useful, the priority of 3. So like the ebb and flow of where your focus is. So that those are sort of some elements of what I would use depending on who I'm working with and how extreme the goal is. So whether it's like Olympic, Strictly Come Dancing and ultra, or it's like doing your first park run, 5K, or it's coming back from like coronary surgery and, you know, being able to move again, coming back from PTSD or an amputation. So that's like to give you it's the same, but it's like different. In
each of those, no matter, they're all big to the individual.
They're all massive. Yeah.
It's like I think it comes back to that importance of your purpose, of being clear on your purpose for doing it. Because like you say, that's going to get you out of bed on the really grotty days. And you don't feel like getting out and doing the work. You don't feel like doing the training. But also in a sense, that training, it gives you that focus while you're doing it. I think there was some study done. I talk about this piece of work study all the time when it comes to sport and performance. And it says that being in the gym also and doing your workout, doing your training, doing your conditioning gives you a buffer to future stresses as well, because it sort of replicates some of the sensations in terms of high blood heart rate and blood pressure. Yeah. That sort of pain sensation, but in a completely safe environment. So actually, you know, it's conditioning for your levels of stress, be that a mental one or a physical one. Yeah. So it's actually, like you say, once you've got that purpose, you can then get up on those mornings or those evenings, do your training. And it's a really good way of helping you cope with all those physical and mental stresses that you're under, and getting clarity and gives you time to yourself to really think and focus more. And then you can progress as well. I hope I'm making sense.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's great. Yeah, it's great. I mean, I'd say absolutely. And I say, you know, it doesn't need to be the gym. It could be like somebody that likes dancing and they put on something on, you know, their laptop. They put something on an app on a phone, do something in the garden, get out in nature, walk the dogs, play dance with their kids, pick up their grandkids. You know, it's like find your thing. There are so many things, you know, you have go paddleboarding, go, you know, like, and that was just another client who managed to find a paddleboard on, I think, Facebook Marketplace for free. And so it's like removing the barriers and going like, what's your thing? And it doesn't need to be the gym, but yes, doing something hard. I always say like, there's resistance, to use that metaphor of like, there's resistance before you lift weights, and that's what builds strength. And I love that metaphor. And so it's like knowing what helps you. And there's also resistance before change, even if it's moving towards something that you really want, because it's the unknown. And it's like, oh, how will I feel if I do achieve it? How will people receive me? How will I feel if I don't achieve it? And it's like, bring yourself back. So get really clear on the outcome, but be really committed to the consistency of what you're doing. And you never know what can happen, but you have to start. I think it comes down as well for a change, like you said earlier, about putting yourself first, because we have a tendency to think, well, like you were saying about what will my partner think, what will my family think, what will friends think, you know, how will those relationships change if I succeed in this? You know, having that strong network around you, no matter what age you are. And I think that's something is, you know, we're all, I guess we feel guilty about doing things for ourselves sometimes, but you can then show up for others when you've taken care of your own needs as well, particularly if you are changing. Change is hard. We're creatures of habits at the end of the day. It's scary, but once you break through that and you go through that, then you build your confidence and you're ready for the next thing. And again, touching on something we said earlier about life changes. Life isn't going to stay the same. And people are going to fall away. New people will come in, new opportunities will come in, and old things will fall away. And it's being at that space where you can let go of all of that. And that's certainly something that's been a revelation for me, is getting to a point where I just don't
worry and get react to things. So it's much easier now, because they've gone through those challenges and so many changes, that you can just let things fall away and just let things flow and happen.
Yeah, I think it's wonderful that I like celebrate you have. And I sort of feel like maybe with the neurodivergent being I am, that I sort of have accepted that I probably will always be worried at times, and I'll always have a level of anxiety with some things, and then I'll be productive and focused and clear, and then I'll be a bit chaotic. And I've been more and more open with sharing those things, because it seems to help people listening that yes, you've got the tools, and yes, you show up and you do these things, but also it's chaotic for everybody, and life can be challenging. I went to a really good talk, to credit her, and with Sarah Davies, the Dragon's Den up in Newcastle.
Oh, right, yes.
And this talk touching on the guilt, and she said, which I completely agree with, that it has no purpose. And her story from her book, which is, I think, this 60-Minute Entrepreneur. It's a brilliant book. I may have got the title wrong, but it's really good, even just for life. And, she was saying, using her story, but crediting her, that, if she went traveling and left the kids and was feeling guilty, and all that did was drain her, and the kids were actually fine. And so that's a very brief snapshot of it. But it was like, guilt doesn't serve us, it just drains us. And so underneath guilt, if we're looking at sort of NLP and layers, is often like sadness or fear or abandonment or something else. And so it's like, what's your fear underneath the guilt, so that you can free yourself from that? And I think putting yourself first, it can really make people sort of go, oh, I don't know if I can do that, particularly, in this culture, I found. And I return to that statement of, how can you help yourself? And by helping yourself, how will that then help others? And it somehow feels easier then. It's like, how can you commit to yourself? Because if you don't commit and understand yourself, how can you help anybody else? And I've learned that the hard way, I would say, but I'm learning that it's more and more important to do that, and like stand in your own power, and that the voice and the story that you tell yourself, it's often said, would you say that to a friend? But it's actually saying, really committing, going, would you actually say that to a friend? And if you wouldn't, how can you start to talk to yourself like you would to a friend or a child or an elderly person you loved? Because that guidance will guide you 9 times out of 10 way more effectively than the negative.
Yeah, I mean, I had a set saying from one of my friends. He always said, the problem is never the problem. It's the way you deal with the problem that's the problem.
Yeah, and in the same line, like Byron Katie's work, she says, is it true? If someone says I'm absolutely like horrible, it's like, is that actually true? Let's look for the evidence.
Yeah.
And you might get a couple of examples, but it's not like true 100%. And so that's another good one of like asking yourself, like, is it actually true what you're saying? And it may feel like it's true, but it's probably not actually true. So that's a good question. And another one, I got a little quote there. It's like, what if you fall? But it's also like, what if you fly? There's so much fear attached with, what if I fail? And it's also like, but what if you fly? But equally, there's a fear. We often, I find, hold ourselves in the middle of like, you're scared of progressing too much and then scared of failing. And so we hold in the middle, and I'm just like, just go for it.
I guess that thing is that fear of your identity. Well, look, I'm this strong, capable person. Look at my success. And then I'm going on this different path now. And how will that look to my community, the people I'm around? How are they going to perceive me then? And it's that sense of maybe making yourself a little bit vulnerable.
I think the vulnerability piece is key. And I think that it's just that I say it's like a quiet affirmation of yourself. It doesn't need to be loud. It doesn't need to be, if you want it to be loud and sharing, go for it. But also it's a commitment for yourself.
Yeah.
And so if there's a quiet assurance in yourself, then people, I'm very highly sensitive as well as neurodivergent. And it's taken me a long time to be able to manage, an array of comments, as it were, in life and on social media, but also knowing like everybody is different. You're never going to be everybody's cup of tea ever. You know, some people don't even like tea.
Crazy if you were trying to.
Yeah, and some people don't even like tea. And then even if you are a nice person and a kind person, or a, you know, a really interesting person, you know, whatever you are, it may not resonate with that other person. And, you know, they are amazing and you're amazing, but you're just different and it doesn't fit in that jigsaw. And so it's like free yourself from that.
I think that's really important life lesson, is to, you know, and you do hear it a lot, you never be authentic to yourself, and you don't try and please everybody, just show up as you are, who you are, and your sort of people will find you and stick with you. And I think that's another thing of a life lesson, I guess, is just understanding, you know, not everyone is for you and you're not for everybody, but there is people out there, situations, opportunities that are for you, and they will come to you at the right time. And it's having that patience and being confident in yourself. And I think the key is, and it's something I think you lose as you get a lot older, is that confidence a little bit.
I think you get confidence from, like, confidence just doesn't come. I think it comes from, you know, giving yourself the evidence you can do hard things. And I did some work, like went on the tracks with Stylist magazine and events, and they had an adventure day, and it was just I really recommend their events. They are a female only one. There's other male ones, or male and female. My client base is 50-50 male and female. But you know, they were hard things that we all did on that adventure trek. And there were people from all ages and backgrounds, and everybody was nervous before we began. But by the end, you'd grown in confidence. But if you'd waited to sign up, you wouldn't have ever felt confident to do it. And I think that's something, is that, you know, confidence comes from taking action. It doesn't normally come until you've done the hard thing. That's what I've learned, I think.
And I think actually you touched on adventures there. I think we always forget about doing those things. You always think, oh, I've got to take part in a sport, or I've got to go out running, or I've got to go to the gym. Something like that is fun, it's exciting, it's social.
Exactly.
Everything. So it's really a great way of sort of getting started, at least, and having that purpose. And of course, you've got other people there that are going to support you, which I think is fantastic.
Oh, there's amazing community things now, like in your local community. And it may not be like your normal people, but like go and give it a go. And outside of sport, you know, like if you love music, creativity, painting, art, learning a new language, you know, all these things activate our brain in different ways, which then expand what we believe is possible. So, you know, movement and health and well-being is amazing, but then also doing all the other things, they all help too. And then having that ability to just pause for a moment. And so if you're listening, it's like, which bit could I do in the next month, depending when you listen to it. It's like, what could I put in there? And if you're listening, it's going into autumn, it's like, okay, so the nights will become shorter. How can I make sure I get some daylight? How can I choose something? You know, maybe I need to adapt what I'm doing so I'm still moving. You know, do I normally get an autumn cold? How could I change my nutrition slightly? How can I bring in connection? You know, so it's always just kind of like doing that self-reflection every 2 or 3 months on what's next. And, you know, if you're in a large family, it's like get everybody involved. Like kids are great at giving ideas and they love doing it. And or if you're not, if it's just you, get your friends involved, or find a group and or have time yourself, like whatever works for you.
So coming back to the more health fitness, what is happening now have you found in the new health? There's so many new things coming on the market, and you talked earlier about vagus nerves and stuff, and I want to find out a little bit what the top performers, what they love to do when it comes to being at their peak fitness. But what's going on and sort of new that's coming up? I mean, I've heard a lot about vagus nerve stimulus, various products on the market. I think NeuroSim is one. brain fitness, another one, and things like I was talking to a company called Gene Fitness recently, and about they do this testing to see your genes to figure out, how they, and that helps them in a way to tailor your health and fitness program. So it's much more tailored, bespoke way of approaching someone's fitness and being more proactive in terms of their fitness. Are things like that really taking off for people who really want to go to that next level?
I mean, I'm smiling because I'm probably not ahead of the trends very often, but I would say yes, like DNA, genetic testing, blood testing, all of that I've done with clients for quite a long time. Not every client, but like a handful of clients. And I would say more and more personalized, like DNA, genetic testing is becoming more of the norm, and like wearable technology and smart tech. That said, I would say there's also, if you want to use the word like rebellion, to some people going, I don't want tech, I don't want that. I want to get more in tune with myself and work more with like breath work, cold water exposure, saunas, infrareds, light, and more of the sort of natural stimulation to like youthfulness and energy. There's adaptogens, so all the mushrooms and different adaptogens, that's, in different supplements, that sort of seems to be quite topical and on trend as well. And then if you're just purely looking at like the functional aspect, like really good postural care and like overall functional strength for life is something that people are looking for, along with brain health. So that's what I was saying about like the creativity, the artwork, the brain puzzles, like brain health, breath work, and then being able to move your body in like squat down, pick up something, turn around, move pain-free. All of those things, like the quality of life markers and spending time outside in nature and being, going for a walk. Post-COVID, those things are really important to people, to have those basic like human needs, along with, all the sort of more complex and individual bespoke testing that you can do. But obviously that's more limited because there is a cost with that. So it's like, I like to be accessible. So for some, we don't do any of that. And I feel like you can still get really good results by just connecting with yourself. Yeah. And sometimes doing all the testing can take someone away from themselves and get them more stressed. So I don't offer or use it with, it's probably a handful of clients. But the top athletes that I work with would be using that, but then some of them don't. So again, it's very personal, but I would say breath work, mindset, performance, really working on your own mental well-being, as well as your physical strength, and linking to the beginning of our conversation, bringing it all together is key.
And I guess as a starting point for someone who's thinking of, right, I've got to do something now, like you said, getting in touch with yourself, understanding who you are, being in tune with yourself is probably the best first step. Because until you've sorted that out, all the rest is going to be stressful.
Yeah, I think, if someone's listening, when you say like getting in touch with, they can get in touch with me just to ask something, like ask any question. But also if you're thinking, what do I take from this? It's like sit down and on a piece of paper, just go, how is your mood? How's your energy? How's your sleep? What are the things you'd love to do? What are the things that are challenging you? And you look at that and you choose 3 things out of there to commit to for 6 weeks. And if you're not sure exactly how to make it really specific, then, reach out to someone and get them to help you. Because even like one session with someone, impartial, neutral, I always have support. I'm very open with that, because it's like, I know, inverted commas, or should know what to do, but it's like that role reversal and someone asking, okay, so what is it that you really want, and what can you do right now with your life circumstances? And just really being brave, like literally go for it. Don't wait, and find, there's something that's possible, even though all these things may not be. It's like, find the something. Yeah.
And I think, like you say, it's like it's difficult to assess yourself in that sense. So sometimes, like I say, whether it's a professional person, you get help, but if a family member or a very good friend can draw that out, because I think if you're sitting down and writing that list about yourself, we won't necessarily be completely honest with ourselves. Sometimes you need someone to help draw you out. And I always think that, whatever you decide you want to do in life, if you're not sure how to go about it or take that first step, you always have a blueprint from somewhere else. So say if you're very organized in your work and your business, and you have a great diary and everything's to the to the minutest degree, then take that approach to how approach maybe how you're going to get fitter or healthier, or take part in an extreme sport or something.
Yeah.
Go and plan it out in the same way, and do it step by step, day by day, and over, if you want to do it over a specific 6 months, a year, whatever, plan it out, and then that helps you commit as well to it.
Yeah, it's a brilliant example. Like I always say, like everyone will be good in one area of their life and less good in another area, and it's like, take that area and map it into the other area, and that'll feel really awkward and uncomfortable, but it's like, it is possible. And so brilliant example.
Thank you. So Kim, what is next for Kim?
Well, practicing what I teach, I'm having a wee break after doing the 100 miles. So I walked 100 miles in 44 hours. I was almost last, but I managed it, managing a vascular condition for Macmillan, and I raised a lot of money. And so when we talk about whys, that was my big why, was like raising the money. And it was a profoundly difficult but amazing experience. And so sort of reflecting on that. And then I have 2 or 3 different events and workshops and clients and things. And so I'm in priorities. I'm in more of a, maintenance, doing some work on a leadership course that I'm doing, and an ADHD course, and just really taking care of my clients and spending time with my family and friends before the next chapter of some more events and work comes up. But my door, as it were, is always open for people if they just have a question, or they want to share a goal, or they want to chat about anything. The door is open, and you don't need to be an amazing athlete, which is often people like, oh, I didn't get in touch because I wasn't an athlete. I'm like, everyone is welcome. And if I'm not the right fit to help someone, I'm pretty sure I know you or somebody else who would be. And that's the key.
So where can people find you if they want to get in touch?
I'm at Kim Ingleby, kind of everywhere, and there doesn't seem to be another one.
A link in the show notes. So
and then Energized Performance. The socials or the website, and I'll always
you've also written a book, haven't you?
I have. I've written a wee book called 52 Ways to Feel Good. It's here just by chance, and it's just 4 lines a page, and it's opened up at not planned, expand your life through experiences that excite you and life events which challenge you. Always be open to growth. So when I sell it, it's £10 a copy, and the profit goes to charity.
There you go. So a good investment there. And the money goes to charity, because you're great for raising money for charity. You've raised thousands for charity.
Yeah.
So, look, Kim, I really want to thank you for coming on the show today. It's been really fascinating talking to you, and there's some really great tips for people to take away, and hopefully start getting their future health and fitness going from this end of this year going into 2026. Hopefully we'll get some feedback in the comments about what people are planning for the future in terms of
definitely
fitness. This is a great inspiration, and like I said, you've come through some bad times, and you're flying now, as you say, you're flying.
Thank you, Julia.
And so thank you so much. Really appreciate you coming on. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me, and everyone listening, thank you for listening, and just be brave, like back yourself, even if you're in fear, take that step and let us know how you go.
Great quote to finish on there. So I'd like to thank everyone for joining us today. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. It's been fantastic for me. I've loved every minute of it, but I look forward to seeing you on the next episode. Have a great day, and thank you for joining us.